Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Pilot Money Guys podcast, where our mission is to help clients build and protect wealth to achieve their dreams and goals. This podcast is brought to you by Leading Edge Financial Planning. Without further ado, here is your host, Robert Eklund.
Well, a tip of the cap to you, and thank you for joining us on the Pilot Money Guys podcast, where we're talking some aviation news and aim to bring you some lighthearted financial fun. I'm your host, wealth manager, and airline captain Robert Eklund, call sign Rubber Mallet. That's a total tanker call sign. I was thinking about this, Charlie. It's like, that's a tanker call. It's too long to be a real call sign, and probably not.
Yeah, probably too long.
We'd have to shorten it evil enough.
Mallet would be good, though. I think mallet would be great. Yeah. But yeah, it's. I can't remember how we got there.
You can always tell when the tanker guy comes up with call signs because they're too long, not evil enough. I'm, of course, joined by Charlie, the Godfather, certified financial planner, former airline pilot, Charlie Magley.
Godfather does not qualify either. We've talked about that.
I know. It's too nice, too.
Way too flattering. But you know what? We're mature enough now. We can give each other good call signs. And
that's right.
Sense. That don't make the rules.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got the augmented crew, of course, the professor, Kevin Gormley, CFP, PFS, CPA, all-around good guy. Welcome, Professor.
The professor is to make fun of me, by the way. So I think that one is probably pretty good, Charlie. What do you think?
Yeah, that's there's a little bit of that in there, but you are a good teacher, for sure. Sure. Very knowledgeable.
Oh, thank you.
Very nerd-like.
Yeah, you are. Very, very nerd-like, Kevin.
Very nerdy.
Well, let's jump into it. Aviation news, we got the big to-do right now is the 737-900 with Alaska Airlines. We've got a little article here, but let's just talk generally. We won't get into too many details here, but basically they had a 737-900 MAX that the door or the plug blew out. And so they're inspecting and they're trying to figure out what happened. The NTSB sent letters. They grounded the airplane, so it's down. Both Alaska and United flies the plane, so they're out for a bit. So their schedules are being hurt. But the plug, apparently, there's some issues because they've been inspecting them, apparently, and they've found more loose items in additional planes. So not just one airplane. It's more than one, and it all has to do with this plug and maybe the bolts, I guess. Wow. They found, I heard this one, Charlie. They found the door in a teacher's backyard in Portland there, and apparently his name's Bob, but he took pictures. They were asking all these people, hey, do you have any debris? They also, this is an interesting one, Kevin. They found an iPhone. It was still working, and the guy picked it up, and it was on the baggage claim, so they knew it was from the Alaska Airlines flight. That was off. It was still working. 16,000 feet it dropped.
Wow, that's incredible.
Isn't that nuts?
That's impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive.
I wonder Apple stock is up.
Right?
It's good advertising.
Right? Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And just pilot speak here. I just thank God no one was sitting in that row, right? Because someone was there. The seatbelt sign, I don't know if it was on or off, but 16,000 feet. There's potential it could have been off, and no one was there, and no one was up and about. So
that's miraculous right there, and because we've seen when that's not the case, it's pretty gruesome, and so no fatalities, and that's amazing considering part of the airplane just was removed.
They have not found I guess 4 bolts on the plug. They haven't found them, so they don't know if they were there and they are gone, misplaced or whatever, or they just were never put in. So the Boeing CEO, I guess, gave a pretty passionate speech to the Boeing employees and whatnot, and is adamant they're going to fix it and that can't happen again, and they need to have safety on the forefront of their minds when they're doing everything. Everything's so important. But he got pretty emotional, I guess, when he was giving it. He said, hey, that could have been, I'm not going to quote him directly, but he said something to the effect of, that could have been my kid, your family, my family sitting next to that door. And initially they didn't know what, I guess happened. So that would have been terrible.
Yeah, it would have been. And I don't know if we know, Rob, but I wonder, obviously Boeing's going to get a lot of the blame. Was it a Boeing issue? Was it a maintenance issue? Has there been any talk about that at all?
And this is where our listeners, you send us some emails. You'll probably figure out faster than we do. But from what I'd heard, apparently, and this is all apparent, I didn't read this anywhere. This is kind of secondhand, so I'm remiss to even say it. But they said that there was some pressurization issues. They had been deemed not worthy for ETOPS. They could just fly locally or non-ETOPS flights. And that's when it happened, was right over Portland there. So kudos to the crew. Everyone lived. Everyone was safe. They diverted to Portland and got it back safely. So
I did read a part where it said it ripped off their the pilots. It slung open the cockpit door. It jammed the bathroom door shut. There was nobody in the bathroom, thankfully, but they couldn't communicate at all. It ripped off their headsets. Can you imagine the chaos up in the cockpit trying to communicate? Yeah. They couldn't communicate with the flight attendants. So that's
crazy.
That's a crazy scenario because they have no idea what was going on in the back.
Right.
For all they know, there were fatalities.
Yep. Yeah, you don't know. And then, threats of other activities, terrorist activities or whatever. That's a crazy situation for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought it was very lucky it did it at 16,000 feet, not at 34,000 feet. Mm-hmm. That probably would have been a lot more explosive, and people might have been up and about too. So thank God it didn't happen at 16,000 feet. I think a kid lost his shirt. It ripped his shirt off. And,
oh my gosh.
So not good. They're obviously going to investigate and figure out what happened and fix the problem. So that the NTSB definitely talked about that, or the FAA, they talked about how, hey, this is not going to be speed. We're not trying to do this fast. We're going to take our time. So who knows when we'll come back into service. But Kevin, did you see the video on that?
Yes, I did. And I also heard the pilot talking to air traffic control. That recording was on there as well. And it was, she said it was very hard to hear. Very hard to hear.
Yeah.
So I guess the cabin depressurized, and is that right? And
yeah, for sure.
Extremely loud. So, but yeah, the thing that I learned this week was, what a plug was. I thought it was a door, and then I heard a plug. They found a plug, and I said, okay, they found the plug. What happened to the door? And then I learned the plug is the door, and it's not a door. So
yeah,
that's about all I got.
Yeah, that just for I guess non-aviators out there, as you get higher in altitude, the pressure is going to increase on those doors. So the fact that it was at 16,000 feet and not 30s, up in the 30s or 40,000, that meant the pressure wasn't quite as strong, but obviously enough for the plug to blow out. Wow. So, and rip some shirts off people.
Golly.
But interesting stuff. Questions from the flight deck. Charlie, you want to take the first one?
Yeah, sure. So, we've got 401k limits, IRA limits. You can address those. I know you got a little bit to add there. We've been getting a lot of questions on. Yeah, we've been getting a lot of questions on. Hey, what about these bonus checks? United's got big bonus checks sitting around, and clearly there's a lot of options. But one discussion we had recently was, hey, there are options if you've got cash sitting around. Maybe you got a midterm goal of some sort. There are some good options for interest rates still. So don't let it sit there too long doing nothing, being unproductive. Get those dollars to work. There are still some good CD rates and interest rates on treasury bills. And so those are the things. We talked to this particular person about, hey, it's a good time maybe to get a head start on college. Put a front load college stuff. You can actually put $170,000 for a married couple into a college 529. And that's, using the gift tax limits, front loading 5 years. I think my math is right on that. But that's a good one to think about. Get ahead of that. Taxable brokerage. We're big fans of using the taxable brokerage account. That's a non-401k, non-IRA, but it's very tax efficient, very flexible. And again, like as pilots, I think they all need kind of a mega emergency fund. So think about those kinds of things as far as bonus checks are concerned.
Yeah, dang. Did you say 180,000? Is that right?
170 is, I think, my last math, but I could be wrong. I've done bad math before.
I think it's 108, but whatever. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Either way, that's great. The gift tax annual exclusion is 18,000 for
so
2024.
Yeah. Okay, it did go up. I was using 17,000, so it is a little higher.
Hey, just real quick, what's your favorite tax number here? What's your favorite one, Charlie? Godfather? Which one you like?
My favorite one is the 415 limit,
Yeah.
76,500, because I turned 50 this year. I'm finally catching up to Kevin, and I get to put a lot more money in my 401k. So that's exciting.
Cheaters. Bunch of cheaters. Kevin?
I love all the tax numbers, Rob. They're all like children, you know. So I can't pick one over
They're
the
all
other.
like children.
Yeah.
I love it. That's good. Good answer. Well, okay, so let's dive in a little bit. The most important, I think, is that 401k number you were talking about. Well, actually, the 402g limit is my favorite of the 23,000 for us younger than 50, and an additional 7,500 if you're 50 or older. With company contributions, you can add another $46,000 if you put in all 23,000, for a grand total of 69,000 in 2024 if you're younger than 50. Like you already said, if you're older than 50 there for the 76,500 in your 401k. It's great news for pilots, I think, because it means more money getting in those tax qualified accounts and helps you save some money from the tax man or tax woman. Oh, I didn't even say, what are we calling this? We're calling this episode the tax man cometh, but do not fear, right? Love
Something. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you can throw that out there.
That's a good one. I like it.
Right, yeah.
And I know you guys are probably asking, that's great, but what about my IRA limits? Well, we're going to tell you that's risen also to $7,000 of tax qualified dollars into your IRA, and potentially backdoor those if you're in that scenario into a Roth IRA if you make more than $230,000 married filing jointly or $146,000 filing single. And those are the amounts that you start to phase out. So consult a professional, consult Kevin. Give us a call here, whatever you want to do there. Go to leadingedgeplanning.com, click the right side, schedule an appointment with one of our fantastic advisors. We've got quite a few now, so good stuff there. HSA has risen to a family $8,300, single for $4,150, so just half of that. $1,000 catch up if you're 55. That's the one. I don't know why they do 55, but that's the one that's a little different. So 55 and older, you get $1,000 catch up in the HSA. Probably not a ton of people over 55 and older that are in the HSA, but biggest thing I think that we can probably foot stomp is there could be a sunset of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was back in 2017, sometimes known as the Trump era tax cuts. And if those happen, it's going to sunset at the end of 2025. So we don't know what's going to happen, obviously. Congress could act, Congress could not act. We don't know. But from the information we have right now, it's supposed to sunset. So that means that the rates will rise. I won't go over what they're going to rise to because I know Kevin's going to fall asleep, but they're going to rise a couple percentages in most cases. A couple stay the same. But that just means, the IRS is going to collect more money again. So there again, you can, perhaps get some more money into Roth would be a strategy at these lower tax rates, but they may change. So we don't know what's going to exactly happen. Any thoughts on that, Kevin?
I think there's a 50.1% chance that they will go back. So
there we go.
I don't have a strong opinion, in other words.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I think I heard someone cry uncle, which I don't know what that means. What is it? I don't know what the origins of uncle mean. Is it because uncles lay down the law on nephews? Is that what happens? That's it. Charlie, Kevin, someone take over.
All right, here we go. Ready? We're going to attack taxes today, and we're going to hopefully provide some good information about what you can do, what you should definitely not do, and what maybe some other things are. So we're going to go in 3 phases here. We're going to go phase 1, straight up fraudulent. Don't go there. All right. And you might be surprised a little bit. So then phase 2 is going to be not quite fraudulent, but really stupid as well. Let's don't do something just because it's legal. We want to maximize net worth. We don't really want to sacrifice our wealth just in order to stick it to the tax man. So, those are things that we get emotional about. Then the last category here is going to be not fraudulent and very smart. So those are our 3 categories today. And so hang on for the ride. So I'll just kind of start us off here with the straight up fraudulent stuff. Sometimes we don't know. I mean, I'm kind of being a little facetious, of course, but I do believe that we're all kind of attracted to this complexity of maybe solving this tax riddle And again, sticking it to the tax man. Everybody wants to find that magic solution and save taxes where nobody else was able to do it. Oftentimes, there's somebody there to sell you something that you want to hear. And so be very careful. I think, type A folks, problem solvers, go-getters, they're probably a little more susceptible. So be very careful, because somebody will sell you that, snake oil. And then it's just a matter of, do you get away with it or not?
Well, we do have a tax system called voluntary compliance. So that just means we put forth what we think we made, and then the IRS decides if they want to audit it or not. So it seems like the last couple of years in particular, Charlie, there's been less audits. And when I say it seems like, that's backed up by the data. So maybe people are cheating a little, and then people might want to cheat a little bit more, and that's just a slippery slope to go down. So every year, Charlie, there's a dirty dozen tax items that the IRS puts out, and they say that basically they don't like these, and some of them are offer and compromise mills, like these companies that say you could pay pennies on a dollar for back taxes. And then captive life insurances, if they're not used appropriately, could be one of these scams. And I think you might have some more as well.
Yeah. I think the wealthier you get, the more you're going to hear about some of these, quote, I'm doing my little hand air quotes here, opportunities to save on taxes. And so we've seen it before. In fact, I just for fun today, I Googled airline pilot tax fraud, just, hey, what the heck? I think I did it before, and it was a guy that had a few chickens. He was a farmer. And then probably had a crash pad somewhere, and the IRS came after him. But this is a real case where Captain Charles Davis, September 2012, this was sentenced to 10 years in prison for tax fraud. So just a little
Allegedly.
No, he really was. He was really convicted. It wasn't allegedly.
Yeah.
So then it says trial evidence established that in April 2006, he filed 5 fraudulent amended income tax returns, falsely claiming he earned little or no adjusted gross income in each of those years. And then he filed 5 fraudulent income tax returns, again, from 2004, 2008, reporting false amounts of federal income tax withheld for each of those years, and requesting fraudulent refunds from the IRS in amounts up to approximately $1.5 million. The evidence also established that during the time he failed to pay his taxes, the defendant drove a Ferrari and a Mercedes and lived in a lakefront home on Lake Norman, North Carolina. Okay.
What?
Yeah. What? I don't think,
Let's see the problem here.
What's the problem? And by the way, Davis also used a fraudulent address in Texas to avoid paying state income taxes, and currently owes North Carolina Department of Revenue in excess of $150,000. So
don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Kevin. Yeah, Kevin's got. What are you going to say? Pigs get slaughtered, Kevin.
Yeah. So this is one of the areas I think for our clients is extremely important. Is this whole idea of I'm going to have like a tiny home in Florida, and even though I live in Minnesota and I fly out of New York, I'm gonna make Florida my domicile. I mean, this is a slippery slope. So this guy did that and much more. But that's part of the slippery slope. Is you do something, you get away with it, and then you feel like, I can do the next thing. I mean, I wouldn't say that most of our clients would ever file for $1.5 million in refunds, but obviously this person is a pilot that is a crook that just happened to be a pilot. So
yeah. And I think
he just got out of prison. What, last year? This happened back in 2012.
Yeah, he's probably listening to our podcast right now. So Charles, don't come after us here if you're listening.
Charles, if you have your side of the story, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, he's reformed now. Yeah, he's reformed.
He's reformed, and we'd love to interview you, Charles. But anyway, you're right. It's that's pretty egregious. I think that's part of the reason he was sent to prison, because not only did he do these things, but then he kind of tried to prevent the investigation, whatever. That's pretty extreme. But again, back to the real estate, where you're living, and you nailed it. You said, Kevin, you said buy a tiny house somewhere. Guess what? That's exactly what New York looks for. New York State looks for the size of your home in Florida, because if you've got a mansion in New York and a tiny home in Florida, they're coming after you. That's one of the things. I shouldn't say it like that. That's one of the red flags. Let me rephrase that. But
May come after you.
they may come after you. But here's a good article we'll put in the show notes from Kiplinger's, and this is all over the web. If you want to, Google checklist. If you want to get a second home somewhere in the great state of Tennessee, because we don't have a state tax, get online. There's lots of checklists, and let me just throw a couple things out here. You need to register vehicles in that state. You need to register to vote. You need to get a driver's license. If you've got kids, they probably, well, I shouldn't say probably, they need to be in school there. Back to your point, Kevin, you need to buy or rent a bigger home is one of the things that Kiplinger's talks about. It says, hey, it doesn't make sense if you got a mansion in Chicago and you got a tiny home somewhere in Florida. They're probably going to disallow some of that stuff. Tell people you're a resident. If people don't think you live there, then that's a problem as well. Important documents, keep them there. Do activities, join social groups. And by the way, you have to live there 183 days or more. I think that's the number one, where you actually have to be there more than half the year. So those are some other things. There's a few more, like do your banking, pay your bills, get your mail. But be careful. I think
Charlie, you remember when I can't remember what flight it was, but what episode it was, but we talked about the hedge fund manager, I think, moved to Texas, and New York wanted to get their share of the money. And he had to prove where he pulled out where his dog went, which veterinarian his dog went to in Texas to prove that he was a Texas. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, these high income states, they're pretty aggressive. California, Illinois, New York. I think they're on to this kind of stuff. So we know that it can be done, but you just have to do it right.
Charlie, there used to be a saying that I used to hear a lot. I don't hear it as much anymore, but if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Yeah. And so that's what this is that if you don't do everything possible to divorce yourself of that other state, that state is going to win against you, because the burden of proof is on you. It's not on them. So if you still have, your cars registered to the old state and all these other items are there, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. So they might not catch you though. So, but you're probably in trouble if they do audit you.
Yeah. Again, most of folks we know are not doing fraudulent stuff intentionally, of course. So let's move on to the category of not fraudulent, but also not smart. This is the category where we get emotional about taxes. It pisses us off. And I'm going to go by, bleep that out maybe, but I got passion. Wow. I got excited there.
Whoa, language, Charlie, language.
I'll tone it down. But this is the one where we get angry. We want to do whatever it takes to avoid some of that taxes, not evade, avoid. Avoid is legal. But then we kind of do things like maybe buy a bad piece of real estate, or maybe invest in a bad side hustle that kind of makes us miserable, but yeah, we have losses, or maybe save some taxes that way. Make a good investment decision first. Think about taxes second.
I think there's something extremely important here for our clients, and that's that if you want to use the tax card as a reason why you want to get something that you already wanted to get, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Like if you wanted to get the EV, the electric vehicle, and actually, there really is a tax incentive there. If you wanted to buy a tractor for your farm, and you were going to buy it anyway, all right, then that makes sense. I mean, so sometimes you can pull this card out and use it, especially with the spouse. You can say, oh, we get a tax break, but most of the time, don't fool yourself. This is the key message, I think, is don't fool yourself that losing money on purpose to save on taxes is ever a good idea. It's just not. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah. And again, it decreases your wealth, which is what we really are focused on, is let's just pay the tax man, not a cent more than they're legally, obligated to do, but nonetheless, let's don't lose money. And, Rob, you're a good example. You got an airplane And I think this is a legitimate.
Almost. We don't have it yet, but we're thinking about it.
Yeah, and that's a legitimate operation. You've got a little another side thing going on, and so that it could be
NorthSkyRanch.com.
There we go. Nice. Grass-fed, delicious grass-fed beef.
Do you rent it out, Rob?
We've got two cabins. We got two cabins that are coming up. So yeah, we've rented it out to various people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah. One of the things I'll say on this tax deduction front, whether you're doing side hustles, airplanes, rentals, the holy grail, and I think what people think they can do is take some of these things and reduce their airline income. Most of the time, 90+% of the time, you cannot do that. So if people know that from the start, it might help you to understand, well, maybe going to buy that real estate I really don't want is not going to, maybe that helps you make a decision.
To your point, I think there's certain circumstances where it's okay to get some of these things like Kevin and you were talking about, but you better be very careful. There better be a legitimate reason. For our ranch, it's been established since 1888. It's a working ranch, over 100 head of cattle, and lots of moving parts.
Just in case the IRS is listening.
That's right. Yeah, lots going on there. So plenty of legitimate is established well before trying to get any tax breaks from it. But if you just go out and buy a farm just for the tax breaks, to your point, which people have done, I think the IRS is onto that, right? They know, hey, you got 2 cows, but you're claiming you have a ranch and you had to buy whatever for it, 15 tractors. It's not going to work.
And I think there's also a second level effect that I see, and especially with people that we meet with, Charlie, that we don't currently work with, is they say, I need to buy, or I should buy real estate. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because I'm going to save on taxes. And so people even feel guilty when they're not using certain tax code breaks to increase their wealth. And I'm like, well, do you want to do real estate? They're like, no, I don't know anything about it. I don't want to do it. And I'm like, well, then why are you saying you should do it? And they're like, well, I talked to a bunch of people that are really savvy and they say that I should do this. So people do go into certain businesses because they're told by others they can save tax. Now, again, if you want to do real estate, if you enjoy it, something you have a passion for, it's absolutely tax preferenced in the tax code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did real estate, Kevin, and I saved a lot of taxes. I almost got to wipe out all of the rental income. And that's because I had to buy new air conditioners. I had to replace a roof. I had to replace a septic system. I had to buy hotels to put them up in. So I spent a ton of money. So, that's what I was like, I'm done on this saving taxes. But anyway, no, real estate can be done correctly. It's a great investment, or can be, if you enjoy it, if you're good at it. Don't spend $1 though to try to save 30 cents like I did. So I
think that's the key too, Charlie, right?
Yeah.
Don't be stepping over dollars to save pennies. Don't go out and buy the Ferrari or whatever, the 6,000 pound truck if you don't actually need it. It's not what you do.
That's right. That's
Rob, does anyone really need a Ferrari? Come on now.
I mean, some do, Kevin. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Hey, Charles needed one.
I talked to a guy the other day that's he's a Cirrus Vision Jet salesman, and he goes, I just tell people like, hey, you don't really need a car either, so you can get by without it, right? So come on, buy a Vision Jet. It's like, that's a great sale.
I mean, the Vision Jet can land itself. I mean, you can't, you don't even have that with a car. Well, some cars, but.
He's like, need is such a strong word. You don't need a car, But anyway, so let's go to the final category.
Charlie,
yes, sir.
For the record, Leading Edge is not looking at buying a jet. So we had one of our clients, one of the first clients that came on with us, and he said, look, if you guys ever own an airplane, I'm out.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Well, the ranch owns my airplane.
I'm out. If Leading Edge gets its own jet because he's paying our fees, he said, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's the ranch's plane and it's a Bonanza. It's not.
There you go.
A 1959 Bonanza.
The Vision Jet, I think, Charlie, is somewhere between $1.2 and $1.4 million, I believe.
Division
Maybe
Jet. I think it's more like
more.
three plus, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, you're
Yeah.
right. I'm thinking of the
You were
SR22
thinking of the
turbo.
prop, the prop.
Yeah. You're
Which
right.
is
You're right.
how is that over $1 million? That's
Whew.
whew.
So yeah, the final category here is not fraudulent and very smart. This is our favorite category, right? So it's very boring though. People are not going to want to hear this, but it's probably some things we've mentioned before. I'll just rattle these off real quick, and then you all can then pile on. We love the backdoor Roth. Now let me clarify one thing. A lot of people still think, hey, I make too much money to contribute to my IRA, so I can't contribute at all. That is not true. There is no income limit to contribute to an after-tax, non-deductible IRA. No income limit. So do that. And then there could be an opportunity, depending on your circumstances, where a conversion to Roth makes sense. And that's without going into a whole lot more detail. There's certainly some thought needs to go into that, but that's an opportunity that I think is awesome. The health savings accounts, if your medical situation allows that type of high deductible insurance, can be great. Taxable brokerage accounts, we absolutely love because they're so flexible, no limits. You can invest very tax efficiently, kind of like we've talked about in other podcasts where you have this mega emergency fund, which I think is critical for airline pilots.
And withdraw whenever you want.
Yes, there
No
you go.
penalties.
Withdraw.
Yeah.
Yeah, very flexible. We'll throw in some real estate. Real estate's a great investment under the right conditions because Kevin mentioned some depreciation benefits there, kind of like tax deferral. And finally, a bonus one that you mentioned earlier, Rob. If your income is below 300 grand, I'll throw that out there, which is fewer and fewer airline pilots, but you can buy an electric vehicle and get a $7,500 credit.
That's great. That was the professor. I'm not that smart.
Yeah. I have a strategy here that's it's not a short-term strategy. So the issue that our pilots have, this is the number one issue that our pilots have. All the money that comes to you as a pilot is taxed as what? Ordinary income, right? It's the one of the least preferenced items in the tax code. If you can over time build your wealth to a point where your wealth is starting to get taxed instead of you personally, that's how you win the long game with taxes. And I'll give you a good example. Warren Buffett, Warren Buffett doesn't get a salary, no ordinary income there. He gets capital gains when he sells Berkshire stock. That's preferenced. So, one could say, yeah, use muni bonds. I don't know if I would do that just to save on taxes, but that's preferenced. Real estate is preferenced. So dividends are preferenced. Charlie mentioned the brokerage account. So as you build your brokerage account, you can start to thumb your nose at the IRS because you don't have to sell your stocks until you want to. Now, and dividends are tax preferenced as well. So there are ways, I think it's really important to say that you can start to build your wealth bigger than your income from the airlines, but it takes time.
Kevin, for the folks at home, what do you mean by preferenced?
Well, sometimes people in Congress actually do good things, and like if they want to, help with, electric vehicles, they'll make that credit, which is a tax preferenced item when you go ahead and buy that EV. So dividends are considered tax preferenced. They are taxed at either 15%, 18.8, 20, or 23.8%, which is much less than 37. So that's what I mean by preferenced, and sometimes you can use tax policy to do good. But anyway, I better not say anything else about that.
Yeah. It takes a lot of intentionality, a lot of planning. And sometimes, all the time, I think it takes saving more because we all probably have the 401k as the first option. And as your income goes up, you probably are pre-tax, but it's going to take some effort to then save more in that taxable brokerage account, which is a preferenced, tax type of account. It's going to take more savings to save in a health savings account, more to do the backdoor Roth. So it takes a little bit of intentionality, a little bit of sacrifice, quite frankly, to build that wealth that you're talking about, Kevin. But it's totally worth it. People get to the retirement and they have that tax flexibility. And I think not only does it make sense math-wise for tax efficiency, people in retirement that have tax-free assets have greater peace of mind. We've seen that before, in practice.
Yeah, and I'll just say this as well. Sometimes people will say, I'm not putting money in the in the Roth 401k. I'm not putting any money in the 401k because I get all the NEC. I don't want to put it in. And then I'm like, well, what are you doing with those dollars? And they say, oh, I'm leaving it in the bank. And so that's a prime example of I'd rather you have money in the Roth 401k any day, even if you leave it in T-bills in the Roth 401k, because that's a tax preference decision there.
I think those are we talked a little bit about real estate, but it certainly can be a great investment diversifier if you're good at it, if you enjoy it. Otherwise, don't do it. It can be, I think passive income from real estate is probably a wrong way to say that. Passive is misleading, I think, to say the least, because you need to get involved. And if you completely farm it out to someone else, you're going to pay a lot, and you're probably going to lose some of your profits, by doing that. So those are just some things on real estate.
When you use the term passive income, real estate is considered passive income type for taxes. And the only reason why that's important is it really depresses people when they lose money in the real estate. And as you said before, if they make more than $150,000, they do not get to offset their pilot income with that real estate. So that's why it's sometimes, I think it's called passive income, but it's you can't lose money in one business and sometimes deduct it against your pilot income. Sometimes you can.
Okay, here we go. A couple of quotes for you to ponder as you go about your business, of course, about taxes. This one from Al Capone. They can't collect legal taxes from illegal money. Can't do it. And this one's Adam Smith. Little else is requisite to carry a state to the highest degree of opulence, from the lowest barbarism, but peace, easy taxes, and a tolerable administration of justice, all the rest being brought about by the natural course of things. Albert Bush, taxation is the price which civilized communities pay for the opportunity of remaining civilized. That's it. Final destination, Flight 73. The tax man cometh, but do not fear. Thank you for joining us here on the Pilot Money Guys podcast. If you have any questions or that you'd like us to answer on the show, shoot me an email at robert@leadingedgeplanning.com or charlie@leadingedgeplanning.com or Kevin. To sign up for a newsletter, go to leadingedgeplanning.com. If you liked what you heard, hit that subscribe button so we can reach more people. And as Emerson said, the world makes way for those who know where they are going. And as we say, so plan accordingly. From all of us at Leading Edge, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Pilot Money Guys podcast. It has been our pleasure to share some information with you today. Give us a call to discuss absolutely any investment question you may have. Click on the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit leadingedgeplanning.com to learn more. Take care.
Leading Edge Financial Planning, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Leading Edge Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For additional information, please visit our website at www.leadingedgeplanning.com. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, and it should not be relied on as such. It should not be considered a solicitation to buy or an offer to sell a security. It does not take into account any investor's particular investment objectives, strategies, tax status, or investment horizon. You should consult your attorney or tax advisor. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change based on market and other conditions. These documents may contain certain statements that may be deemed forward-looking statements. Please note that any such statements are not guarantees of any future performance, and actual results or developments may differ materially from those projected. Any projections, market outlooks, or estimates are based upon certain assumptions and should not be construed as indicative of actual events that will occur. All information has been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but its accuracy is not guaranteed. There is no representation or warranty as to the current accuracy, reliability, or completeness of, nor liability for, decisions based on such information, and it should not be relied on as such.